time to play some serious catch-up here, as there's been stuff that's been going on that I've been meaning to chime in on, but I've been playing a little bit too much Elder Scrolls Online. Now the one Tamriel patch is out, that game is in league with Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, although it is in no danger of dethroning any of those three anytime soon. But now, it looks like Bethesda, or ZeniMax I should say, is getting over the whole, what do we do? Elder Scrolls or World of Warcraft type thing. We'll talk about the state of where I am with all these MMOs a little later on in the discussion, but I want to talk about some stuff that I've been meaning to chime in on for quite some time, but things have been going on, as you know, beginning with, not Cortana, come on, get the right thing here, beginning with, Tek Syndicate is dead, folks. Sad day, very sad day. I was a fan of Tek Syndicate, just like a lot of you were. I liked the chiptune music and the somewhat darker, rough around the edges approach to technology, giving AMD a chance when no one else would, all that brilliant stuff. But unfortunately, personal issues got in the way, and so now the descendants of Tek Syndicate are Logan and his folks are doing Crit TV, which is the old Tek Syndicate channel for those of you who are bookmarking things. And then Wendell and his folks are doing Level 1 Techs, which is kind of a joke, because usually, those of you who don't... so, I get the joke because I deal with a lot of tech support folks, and I call in some calls and things like that. The Level 1 Techs are the ones who never know anything, and they're always putting you on hold for a minimum of 3 minutes, and then, oh, I guess I'm going to have to run this by my supervisor. So, blah, 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 for about 10 minutes or so to try and get the most basic issues fixed. Well, I'm gonna have to run this by my supervisor, so let me put you back on hold, click. So, I get the joke, but I hope Wendell and his team can get past the joke and get a little bit more charisma going with what it is that they're doing there, because really both of these channels are trying to find their footing after the breakup of Tek Syndicate. Tek Syndicate had something special. They had an approach to technology, creak, pardon the chair. Time for some silicone spray. I would use WD-40, but it's not us. WD-40 is technically for removing water. It's not for actually making things squeak less. It just has the side effect of serving as a temporary anti-squeak thingamawhatsit, but cheap office chair. What are you gonna do? Anyways, so yeah, Tek Syndicate had something special. They had something great, but it can't continue unless Logan and Wendell stay together. They didn't, so here are the descendants of it. And it is kind of a sense of loss. It is kind of a sense of loss that we lost Tek Syndicate to feuds like that, but we gotta move on from it somehow. And it's like when the screensavers broke up. Eventually you found out Leo was doing this, Patrick was doing that, Megan Maroney was doing this, da-da-da. It's like a smaller version of that, but quite frankly, I must admit, there will be times, even after this is long in the history books, when I'll crank up the Gaze of Raccoons or something to get all pumped up for some tech tinkerer type project that I want to work on, or something along those lines. Tek Syndicate was something special, and it's sad to see it go, but as we know, sometimes other stuff gets in the way. So, I probably will be following Level 1 more so than Logan's channel because of the issues on Logan's side of the whole debate. But regardless, now, the rest of the discussion, let's talk about what's going on with some of the stuff that's going on with the gaming world as we know it. So first off, the Twitch setup. This actually did not appear right away when I loaded my channel page, but this is a nice colored up screenshot of Elder Scrolls Online, which is what I've been playing quite a bit of. I'm now an ESO Plus member, which is worth talking about in some Twitch videos a little later on, but much like Star Wars The Old Republic, even though the game is no longer a subscription MMO, if you like it enough that you think it's going to be your main game, it's more than worth subscribing to the membership club. Matter of fact, there's some perks with these former subscription MMOs that make the subscription more worth it than subscribing to a game like World of Warcraft. Now, BlizzCon is currently going on, and Blizzard, of course, has done more about faces at BlizzCon, not talking about Nostalrius or anything. Supposedly that's coming next. But in terms of the announcements of content for Legion and things along those lines, I think it's more of an about face. They're picking up where they left off with World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor, and the disaster that expansion was. But as I've seen with ESO, and with Star Wars The Old Republic before it, a lot of these, my start menu, let's get the start menu off the screen. We don't need it. Don't put on auto-high for it to sit there taking up space. But anyways, the whole situation with these former subscription MMOs is not that they're failures just because they dropped the subscription model, but the perks you get from subscribing to them now are actually, it makes World of Warcraft not look so interesting. You consider the currency that you get in in-game stores, like the Crown Store for ESO, as well as some other perks like the Craft Bag and stuff like that in ESO. Whereas if you're not subscribed to the game, you have to have crafting materials take up inventory and bank space. So the Craft Bag basically gives you a place to put all out those crafting materials, so it pretty much solves any of your storage space issues or mules or other things along those lines until you start getting a whole lot of loot that's not crafting materials. But breaking things down until you actually need them is something that I was already doing in Guild Wars 2, and that's without a subscription fee. So I would still say that Guild Wars 2 remains my favorite out of, in terms of they're trying the most new stuff. But my first impressions of ESO is that it's kind of like an all-star game of everything that's been good about MMOs other than WoW in the last several years. They take a little bit of influence from the third generation MMOs, stuff that Blizzard's just now catching up on, and also the other MMOs that have been formerly subscription but retain some perks if you become one of the advanced players, so to speak, by basically signing up for the old subscription fee. And there's enough perks attached to it that it actually is interesting to be a subscriber, such as free DLC and other sorts of things like that. It'll be very interesting to see where this game and Star Wars goes. As far as WoW is concerned, though, yeah, patch 7 point, it almost feels like I'm going to start missing stuff by playing any other game. And quite frankly, Heel vs. Babyface recently took the focus of his channel away from WoW, and one of the things he brought up was he felt like he was missing something with all the games he wasn't playing because he was sinking all of his time and energy into MMO grinds like this. And that's something really that I think that gaming needs to sort out is, yeah, sure, you can get involved in an MMO, live another life, so to speak. It's kind of the escapism that RPGs have been about for decades. But what do you do when somebody else, one of your friends or whatnot, talks about this game that's on Xbox, PlayStation, or this new release or something like that, and enough new releases go by that you feel like you're missing something? So it's really something to keep in mind with that. So that's the thing. I think we got to get to the point where, number one, the MMOs that you play are based on what you want to play, not necessarily WoW or not WoW. So I like Elder Scrolls, so there you go. I like Star Wars, there you go as well. But whatever I subscribe to, and Final Fantasy's the same way. But whatever you want to play, that should determine what MMO you play, not this is the next WoW killer or something along those lines. Because there are other games out there, and inexpensive games too. MMOs, one of the reasons why they're in the decline, they're kind of in decline these days. MMOs, as we know them, are actually rather expensive. You think, if you're subscribed to ESO and there's a lot of stuff in the store you want to buy, you might spend way more on in-game items for ESO with microtransactions than you would ever spend on even a Steam sale. You talk about $5 games that you never get around to playing because you want to get back to the MMOs that you're involved with. But so yeah, we'll do some more detailed commentary on ESO over on the Twitch channel, but that's where I'm at in terms of gaming and the other stuff as well with the MMOs in general. Guild Wars 2, of course, doesn't have a subscription fee, but I have bought a few items from their store before. But ESO is kind of like an all-star game, and it's definitely a sort of game that I could see myself having as my main MMO for quite some time to come. The big thing I have to figure out if I went back to free-to-play is what to do about the bag space issue. So hopefully I can get a little more established in game and make it so that get a more steady stream of characters with more bank space and whatnot bought with in-game gold instead of through the cash store. So I can get to the point where, hey, if I want to cancel the sub or something like that, kind of like what I did for Star Wars and I stopped playing that on a regular basis, then I can basically, no hard feelings or anything, just come back when I'm more interested in it again. But that's the situation with that. There's been some other gaming-related news that's gone on too, such as Nintendo, for example. The NES Classic Edition. Nintendo is really drilling into people's NES nostalgia with the Classic, but I'm actually more interested in the controller than the system. I have a lot of the games on Virtual Console, and yeah, sure, the emulation looks better on the NES Classic Edition, but what we've run into, as I've been watching some previews with NES Classic, a lot of the shortcomings with some of the modern adaptions of older games, like, for example, expired licenses and stuff is starting to show up. Like Tecmo Bowl, for example. A lot of us who played Tecmo Bowl know what the teams are and know what certain players are, but the player license wasn't renewed. I don't think there's any licenses left. So, for example, if you play as the LA Raiders, which they were back then with the gray uniforms and everything, they're just going to be called Los Angeles, and there's not going to be any player names. So, yeah, it's cool to be playing Tecmo Bowl again, but it's got to be one of those head-scratcher moments that something's missing. Oh yeah, there were no licenses from the NFL or the Players Association. Whoops. So, it almost feels kind of like you should just dig up an old copy of the Nintendo cartridge and play it on something like a Retron or something like that. I think that some of these nostalgia boxes, like the Atari Flashback, the new ColecoVision, and things like the NES Classic, are supposed to play to people's nostalgia, or they're kind of an about-face to some of the Famiclone stuff that's been going on. But I might pick up a NES Classic Edition just to say that I did, but it's not really something that's really all that high of a priority for me right now, because about 95% of what I've been playing lately is on PC. Went to all the trouble to build Monolith. That plays a lot of newer stuff, but I think a lot of it has to do with MMOs. If I was going through the stuff I have sitting on the shelves, around the various shelves that I have around here, I'd be playing a lot more consoles, because I have console games that I was trading for. When I first came here, I went to a local secondhand shop. The thing is, they don't really have anything I want to buy half the time, and they don't do very good cash purchases, unlike, say, an East Starland or something. So a lot of what I did was I traded stuff that I'm not playing for stuff that I might want to play, but now that's collecting dust too. So I'm wondering if I should just cash out with East Starland at 70% of trade value, just make a few shipments to them and pare down some of this console stuff as well. Because, you know, other than a Retron or something, I don't think I really need, I don't play consoles a lot anymore. Even the old ones, even my old Nintendo 64 left over from childhood. I even still have my original Super Nintendo around anymore that never sees the light of day because the Super Retro Trio does everything. Never mind getting a Retron machine. But I seriously think the Retron series might just take over for that entirely, especially with original controllers and stuff like that. But when you run into things like emulation, like for example the Nintendo DS ads in the Virtual Console version of Wave Race 64 because the Kawasaki license expired so it's no longer in the game, I don't think emulation per se is the solution to the retro gaming curiosities that people might have. I think there might still be people out there hunting down original systems or things like the Famiclones to play older games with. But the real question is holding on to all these copies of games that never see the light of day. No, it's even though most of what I have is what people would call common titles, it's that aren't really worth too much, still just taking up the space and having to figure out what to do with all these shelves and things like that, and things along those lines, and whether I want to play things or not. That's really, it's an issue, a very big issue, and things along those lines. Things along those lines. Wow, that's pretty pathetic. But NES Classic Edition, I might pick one up just as a bucket list type thing, but it's not anything I'd be rushing out to get. Really short, it has, the controller cords are really short, so yeah, it is Nintendo, but you have to have the console somewhere near you. It's not really all that living room friendly unless you have it right next to yourself with a super long USB cable to supply power and a super long HDMI to go to the TV. So, it's just kind of one of those deals. But you do need to hit reset on the console in order to change games. So, in a sense, you have to have the little knick-knack nearby, but it's just, I don't really see that working out too much, because in the olden days with the original Nintendo and actual length on the controller cables, you know, we had no problem with getting up and walking over to the TV to change games in the Nintendo. Where did Nintendo get this idea that, oh, let's have it so you can always hit reset, that the little tiny console is always close by so you can push the button to change games? Whoop-de-doo. But then again, if there was a big long controller cord, probably the thing would keep getting knocked off the people's shelves and stuff the minute anybody tripped on there or something like that. This little console is barely bigger width-wise than an NES controller. It's an itty-bitty thing that I'm sure would fly around all over the place if it were used like an old-fashioned Nintendo. The big thing I'm curious about is what are people going to do mod project-wise? Like maybe, is someone going to take a broken NES and then one of these and then mount mount everything up so that everything works inside the broken Nintendo, so that their NES Classic Edition can actually be full-sized. So, yeah, it's, I might pick one up just to say that I did, but it's not anything I'm really in that big of a rush to do. It is kind of a jokey little holiday gift of sorts, so to speak. Speaking of which, let's talk the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch looks interesting, but it's not a replacement for the Wii U, even though Nintendo has ended production of the Wii U. So I really don't know what Nintendo thinks they're doing here, but I think what needs to happen is they need to vastly expand their emulation catalog in order... Then they're doing it with the eShop on the Wii U, but what I'm interested in with the Switch is them going completely digital and having a lot more digital titles available, and basically being like a Nintendo version of Steam. That seems to be what they're going for with what the Switch is supposed to be. But if they can pull this off, then they might have some concentrated coolness versus Sony and Microsoft. But quite frankly, I really can't understand what exactly the Switch is supposed to do. What's the Switch going to be? It does make the Wii U seem like a rough draft, but the Wii U can play Wii games and upscale them. So the Wii U can serve as your HD Mario box for your Wii and Wii U titles, as well as the eShop and other stuff as well. So it is kind of homebound compared to the Switch. But the Switch, I think, is kind of neat, but I don't know if it's really going to have the kind of concentrated coolness to be what it could be if Nintendo took a few hints from Steam. Steam is what it is on PC because of the way the distribution model works. But there's even a couple of limits to Steam as well, like authentication if you lose your internet for too long. If any of these companies could finally get this right, they may give Steam a run for their money. So, I'm curious with what happens with the Switch, but I'm not in a rush to get one anytime soon. Same thing with the NES Classic. I'm curious about the Classic, but it's not anything that's too high priority right now. There's other things I have to be concerned about in terms of expenses or other things coming up, and stuff along those lines. I might get one just as a bucket list item, but that's about it. The Switch isn't even on my radar at this point. I barely even play the darn Wii U. So, the Switch needs to be a big success before I'll even think about getting one. And that's where I stand on that whole matter. But at least they're kind of sort of modernizing, but we got to see how it all pans out. With me, the Switch is a wait and see because I have a perfectly good Wii U sitting around collecting dust. That's a problem. So that's the catch-up on some things, some technical stuff that's been going on. Tek Syndicate, I'm going to miss them, but hey, you know, it was just getting that way. And the Nintendo stuff, it is what it is. Twitch as well, something, yeah, let's discuss Twitch. Uploads are buried on Twitch, so the views are garbage over on Twitch right now. So if Classic Game Room doesn't go over to Twitch for uploads, perfectly understandable. So I hope that Twitch improves that because there's a war brewing between Twitch and YouTube. Twitch has a good streaming setup, they've added uploads. YouTube has a good upload setup, they've added streaming. Question is, how aggressive are these two going to get towards each other? But Twitch, being gaming specific, you'd think that if you wanted to make gaming videos, that Twitch should be your go-to place, but right now it's not. So, it is still a new feature, but it's been out for, what, 2 months now? So I hope that... There's a couple of buggy things going on my channel right now, but right now, blatantly, Twitch still favors streamers. So I'm hoping that the folks involved with Twitch nowadays can get it to where it is more of a gaming destination for people that want to see gaming content, whether it's a stream or pre-produced for entertainment purposes. The big thing I run into, of course, with Twitch, as I believe I mentioned in the State of the Channels discussions, is that the upload section has like 60-part Let's Plays. There isn't like part 1 to start watching the series and then click through all the rest of the videos, taking up the space on the uploads and things like that. And there's also people reposting trailers and other announcement videos. Those get views here. Those get a lot of views because they're promoted content. But in terms of people making gaming videos, it's just too buried. Too many clicks. And too many clicks is a death sentence in terms of trying to build up something on Twitch and shut down YouTube gaming. So if Twitch wants proper upload support, they need to end the streaming dominance and make uploads and streams equally accessible. Right now, it's too many extra clicks to find something you want to watch on Twitch in the upload section. If they can police that and clean that up, then things would be more interesting. But for now, uploads on Twitch, is still very much a question mark. It's not anything set in stone. It's not anything that's really worth it at this point. If someone's already successful on YouTube with a gaming channel, they have no reason to make the switch to Twitch. Can't believe it just rhymed that. But it's not really, and that's really it. What can Twitch do to make uploads more visible, to make it more interesting in terms of people switching over from YouTube gaming? That's the question that Twitch needs to answer before they'll be getting the traffic that they should be getting on the upload side of things. Until then, though, glad to be involved with a gaming-specific site for the gaming videos I make from time to time, although I do think I shot myself in the foot with getting sick right after the feature launched. So here I am with a howdy Twitch thing, and then I disappear for a couple of weeks. I'm thinking ESO will have a lot to... ESO 1 Tamriel and the Skyrim Special Edition, there will be some good games to make some videos about, showcasing mods from Skyrim or what my characters are up to in the ESO world nowadays. But that's the situation with Twitch, that's the situation with everything, and that is the catch-up discussion for everything I've wanted to make less formal discussions about with what's been going on in the last couple of weeks. This is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by. Gotta take a break from all this talking now. Could barely even get through the darn sign-off. Whatever.